Assalamu alaikum.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya salah, hayya salah, hayyan falah, hayyan falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah.
Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu arsalahu bil haqqi bashiran wa naziran bayna yaday as-sa'a man yuti'illaha wa rasulahu faqad rashada wa ihtada ومن يعصهما فإنه قد غوى وإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا إن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحديث هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن خير الأمور عازمها وشر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أن نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم يأن للذين آمنوا وأن تخشع قلوبهم لذكر الله وما نزل من الحق ولا تكونوا كالذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبل فطال عليهم الأمد فقست قلوبهم وكثير منهم فاسقون وقال عز وجل في سورة أنفال إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا ذكروا الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا إلى آخر آية وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن في جسد مضغة إذا صلحت جسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله أو كما قال ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين يا رب العالمين. The first ayah that I recited is from Surah Hadid, which is came down really towards the end of the tartib of Nuzul, towards the end of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mission in Medina. And this ayah is really very alarming. It tells us the behavior of the previous the people who really had the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them and what happened to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really reminding in the surah, addressing the believers, Alam ya'ni lillazina amanu an takhsha'a qulubuhum li dhikrillah wa ma nazala min al-haq. That has not really the time come that the hearts of those the heart should be really tremble, right? Alam ya'ni lillazina amanu an takhsha'a qulubuhum. That the heart should be really put some khashiyah in, right? The heart should be fearful, and whatever has come down from the truth. And then with the warning, وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ. And you, O believers, you, O Muslims, the current Muslim ummah, right? وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ. Don't be like those who were given the book before, right? فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ. When a long time passed over, فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. Right? Their hearts were hardened. فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم وَكَثِيرٌ مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. And majority of them are corrupt. So this ayah essentially is really telling us that the people essentially who are Muslims or the Muslim ummah, with having really the book or the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their hands, right? They listen to it, they read it, right? But after some time, when a long time passes, there's something that could happen is really that their hearts can get hardened, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah is reminding, pointing back to the previous Muslim ummah, right? Especially in particular, really, over here, towards the Bani Israel, right? That, they had the book, they had the messenger, they had all those things. But after a long period of time, when Fatala Lahimul Amad, their hearts were hardened, right? So it reminding us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that, you don't do that, right? And then the ayat, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he mentioned, he also saying something to the fact that, in every body there's one piece, one mudghah, the piece of flesh, right? Referring to really the heart, right? إن في جسدي مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله. That if that piece of flesh, right, is really salahat, if it's really correct, if it's in good shape, if it's healthy, salahat jasad kulluhu, that the whole body will be really healthy and good. Why is that fasadat? When really the heart gets corrupted or sick or ill, right? Fasadat jasad kulluhu, that the whole body is really spoiled, or the whole body is really not at peace, and is not functioning, or the whole body becomes sick of it, right? So there's really this meanings that the ayah is really just telling us that we might be really praying, we might be really reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we might be practicing really what we think is really Islam, but that might be really just superfluous, just really an external aspect of it. But internally, the spirit of it, or the heart of it, is really hard and is dead. So it means that really the surroundings or whatever we do really doesn't matter, right? For example, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that in Allah la yanzuru ila su'arikum wa amwalikum walakin yanzuru ila qulubikum wa amalikum, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't really look at your faces, meaning that how Muslim you look through your face, or how the way you look, right? It doesn't look at your wealth, right? But it looks into your hearts and actually into your deeds that you're doing, right? So the ayah then essentially really saying that has not the time come, before the hearts get hardened, that the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The antaksha qulubuhum li dhikrillah, right? With the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these hearts should be really put khashiyah in, right? Now the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over here is mainly really referred back to the dhikr of Allah is the Quran itself, really, that connects you to Allah. So in other words, that really if we don't have this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we don't have this awareness of this divine presence around us, right? In other words, really what we call a taqwa, why we're fasting these days, to attain taqwa, to become more the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So that we know that He's watching, so we can really adopt an attitude that fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the punishment that may follow if we get into really some disobedience and stuff like that, right? So to really understand that what exactly really caused the previous Muslim Ummah, for example, Bani Israel in this case, what really led their heart to be really hardened, right? So we have to really quickly go back, and we can't go on to really all of the details, but really just look at some of the salient things they were doing, right? And that really their hearts were hardened, right? So this is important, because what in essence this ayah implies that really that you might be really thinking that you're serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're just claiming self-righteousness, but really down deep our ibadah and our things are really just so mechanical, right? For example, you just think about a person who is so concerned about really, how you're going to pray, where your hands are, where your fingers are, where your toes are, right? What you're wearing, all those things, right? And even standing in prayer, he's just looking around and see, who else is not really following those things, right? But on the other side, I mean, he's not even focused in the salah. He really doesn't get that experience that salah should really uh, uh, is for. Akim salat al-dhikri, to really, you come back with like you're meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you come back revived, right? Or in the salah, you don't even know, what you're reciting, what you're saying. You don't even remember what you recited in the first rakah or in the second rakah. And the actual essence of the salah is gone. Really, just the action, merely the actions are left, right? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that the this connection of this heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really the core of Islam. The things that you do, if that link is gone, then really you have like this body just lying down with the hard heart or dead heart. Your other limbs, things are there, but really you're no good. So now let's go back and look at some of the things that Bani Israel, the Al-Yahud, were doing, right? First of all, when we study the Quran, right? When we study the Quran and the Musa alayhi salam's story, or Musa alayhi salam himself, is mentioned so many times in the Quran that the Mufassirun says that the Quran is almost like the story of Musa alayhi salam, the Bani Israel. So the question arises that why? I mean, why is this the case, especially for this ummah? And like over here in Surah Hadid, the reference is going back to the same Bani Israel, right? The people who were given this book before, and they had this book for a long time, but despite having the book and all those messages coming down to them, they led themselves to be really hard-hearted, right? And we know this as a matter of fact, really in Surah Baqarah, that has all the charge sheet or all the details, all these the crimes and things, these people, from a general person to really a scholarly person to everybody, from the political figures to all of whatever they were doing at their level, right? ثم كست قلوبكم فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة. Allah SWT says that after doing all these things, ثم كست قلوبكم فهي كالحجارة, that their hearts were hardened. They were like the hajar, like the stones. أو أشد قسوة, actually even harder than that. That itself shows that really they were artificially hardened, right? Because of some of these things they're doing. So this is the month of Ramadan, this is the month of Quran, and really we are the ummah who have really fatala lahimul amad. We have really 1500 years past. And when we look around today in the ummah, from an individual person, from individual, maybe somebody, to really to a scholar, to really a leader, to a political leader, to really a teacher, to somebody who's selling things on the road, somebody's working, I mean everybody. So it looks like that really the core of this message, the core of this Islam, which is really this qalbun salim, which is really that when you have a not darkened or hardened heart, it seems like that really we are fallen into the same footsteps and things that the previous ummah really went through, and they fell for it, right? So now coming back to the question that why Musa alayhi salam's story is mentioned so much, the reason is because that is really more relating to us. Just think about that. Musa alayhi salam was sent not to really a disbelieving nation primarily, right? He was sent to Bani Israel who were already Muslims. They always had really two messengers in them, two prophets in them all the time, right? One will die and the other one will really replace it. So primarily, really, he was sent to really a nation which was already Muslim, right? Who already had this misak and oath with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second, the objective of Musa alayhi salam was really to free these people from the tyranny of Fir'aun, right? Arsal ma'ana Bani Israel, when he went to see the Fir'aun, that, send, with me, really, that's why I'm here. And then really also give dawah to Fir'aun. So in that sense, that really the learning from the previous, the Bani Israel, from the Al-Yahud, is vital. I'm saying that really, that so that we don't fall into those things and traps that they used to do and they did, right? Is important. That's why the Quran really is almost the story of Bani Israel, almost the story of Musa alayhi salam, because we are also the Muslim Ummah. And the Quran is here who's really the serving that purpose of a Rasul or the Prophet, because being the divine message, right? Unaltered, unchanged, right? So that creates really this relevance. So when we look at the Bani Israel, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them that, Ya Bani Israel, iskuru ni'mati allati an'amtu alaykum wa anni faddaltukum ala al-alamin. That, O Bani Israel, remember the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that who had really bestowed on you, right? Wa anni, and then indeed faddaltukum, that Allah ta'ala says that I have really preferred you above all alamin, right? Above all other words, right? You are really the chosen people among really, Ya Bani Israel, iskuru ni'mati allati, right? So this is mentioned really a couple of times, in Surah Baqarah, telling that really, that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really had picked, these people and, put them on top of the pinnacle of really even the mankind, right? Faddaltukum. Fadl is really not something that you really earn, but this is really just the karam and the rahmah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He give you really more than you really deserved, right? So, inni faddaltukum ala al-a'lami, among, on top of everybody, right? And then when they did all the things that really they promised, they did not really deliver the promise, and they got into really just the mechanical side of the religion, and they lost this inner core spirituality of it, right? And then you also see the same ayahs really in the Quran that says that the duribat alayhim zilla wal maskana wa ba'u bi ghadab min Allah. Subhanallah. Imagine that from this top all the way to here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says duribat alayhim zilla, then they were covered with humiliation and misery, and they drew on themselves the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala didn't send it. They drew on themselves because of continuous disobeying and transgression against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then against each other, right? So those people, they went from top all the way to the bottom, right? And their hearts really got hardened, despite they have the Torah, despite they had all those things, right? When they really focused only on one aspect of the deen, but really they forgot about really the actual what it is all about, right? So there's a lot, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has also told us that that you will follow the sunnah of the previous nations. As when he was asked, تَتَّبِعُونَ سُنَنَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, right? When he was asked that, man who are they? He said, who else? Somebody said, they are Jews and Nasara, the Yahud and the Nasara, and Rasulullah said, who else? Right? So we should really study, what they did, and also really the Quran itself has all the details, right? So among many things that they used to do, right? The وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ, that mixing the truth with the falsehood, right? The excessive questioning that they used to do, right? Because you don't really want to do actual things. The Surah Baqarah, the name itself is driven from that, right? When they were asked really to slaughter a cow, right? And then they said, what kind, what color, it should be the one that we're using, to plow the fields or not, all those sort of things, right? They just keep coming back and forth, all these reasons and things and stuff like that, right? Because the attitude was really just not to do it, right? And then at the end, they end up with, this golden color of cow that was so hard to find. And, this thing. The other thing was that the scholars, for example, right? They will sugarcoat. They will hide actually the commandments and the ayahs of Allah. يَشْتَرُونَ بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا, mentioned a few times, right? That they will sugarcoat. They will really يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه. Allah Ta'ala says that they will change actually the word from its meaning, right? They will say, no, this does not say this. This means really this because this person or this rabbi or this sheikh or that scholar really says this or that, right? Just keep thinking that and tell me that if we are not doing that, the Quran says one thing, but really we say no, this does not really mean this, right? This means this and this means that, right? You have the funal kalima and mu'adid. This is what they really just change the meanings of the word. And then some of the people, they would literally change the ayahs. I mean, literal changing, not really just the translation of it, but they will really just change it, right? With their own hands, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and then say that this is min Allah, this is from Allah. Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has protected this book of Quran, right? That it cannot be really changed, but really we don't change those. But really, in the tafsir and in the explanation, really we twist those meanings to fit really whatever we want to say. Then there's many other things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. They stop doing the amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. The enjoining the ma'ruf, what is known good, and really forbidding, which is really the bad things really known to general human intellect, right? The moral compass, the morality that every human being is born with. So they start that. The other attitude mentioned in the Quran is that remember this ayah in Surah Nisa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned these three tribes, right? These three group of people. That when, for example, Allah says that they don't fish as a test of them, really don't fish on Saturday, right? So so one of the people that came up, because that's what I'm saying, that when you not really following the core of the message, but really just the commands, or really just the mechanical side of it. So they said, well, let's not fish on Saturday, right? Just put a net on Friday, or create a little puddle and really move all those fish onto that puddle, right? Some small puddle, and come on Sunday and really just hit. Pull the net to get all those fish, or really, just get, what is in the puddle, right? So technically, really, you're not fishing on Saturday, but is that really was the required thing, right? So this is what I meant, that really just going around, beating around the bush, right? So then the other two groups, the one group used to really just forbid them that, hey, don't do that, right? And the third group would say that, just leave them alone. Right? And then Allah says that He protected those who used to really give them a reminder. So, and also whenever we talk about in a blanket statement about really any other nation or any other people, it's not really everybody. It really usually means that the majority of them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does say in the Quran, really, He praises also some of the priests, right? They are very humble. I mean, Quran also praises that, right? For the Jews also said, minhum salihun minhum duna dhalik, right? Among them are really the righteous people and others. And the similar, really, the wordings also for the rabbis and also for the priests, right? So this is really not a blanket statement for everybody, but this is really just talking about the main essential core people, and majority of the people, they were really involved with these kind of things, right? Now, what else? The other things, among other things, was وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا أَمَانِي. That among them are really this ummiyun, right? Who Imam Taymiyyah rahimahullah defines that really these were the learned people, right? They will memorize the Torah. They will be talking about really teaching it, but had no idea really, what it is all about, right? The minhum al-ummiyuna la ya'lamun al-kitab illa amani wa inhum illa yazunnun. In other words, that really they don't see anything really in the book but their own desires, right? Whatever really fits them, it really exists in the book, and whatever doesn't fit, their whatever they want, it really doesn't. It doesn't even exist, right? This attitude. And other thing Allah Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, about this previous Bani Israel, was that they took the book of Allah, right, very lightly, right? They threw it on their back, right? And they didn't took it very lightly. Basically, they would not really. They will come up with their own interpretation and reasons and things and stuff like that, right? So these are the few things that they were doing. But one major thing that I really want to discuss in today's khutbah is their attitude of dividing up the deen. Right? This was one thing that was really very salient, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives like a whole case study really in the Quran. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, when أفتؤمنون ببعض الكتاب وتكفرون ببعض فما جزاء من يفعل ذلك منكم إلا خزي في الحياة الدنيا ويردون يوم القيامة يردون إلى أشد العذاب وما الله بغافل عما تعملون أولئك الذين اشتروا الحياة الدنيا بالآخرة فلا يخفف عنهم العذاب ولهم ينصرون. So this is one attribute of them which is really very common. We see this also a lot, that what they would do, that أفتؤمنون ببعض الكتاب, that will you believe really part of the book and reject the other, right? That you believe in really just this part of the book and that really you reject the other part. What is the punishment for such a behavior? Whosoever does it, right? And the illa khizyun fil hayat dunya, other than really the humiliation and the punishment in this life and on the day of judgment, they will be faced yarduna ila ashadd al-azab, towards the severe torment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And وَمَاللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ أَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ, that Allah is not really unaware of how you're really twisting the word, how you're really picking and choosing, right? So this is one thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in their charge sheet, that this is one of the things that they were really just doing, these things. Now, when we look into really the of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is one thing that really stands out among all other things that I mentioned, right? Meaning that what part, basically it means that afatu'minuna bi ba'dil kitab wa takfuruna bi ba'd, mean literally that what part of the religion is suited to you, and what part really that you can really just let go, you can really just ignore, right? So this attitude of really just following and looking into really just one aspect of the deen and really the part of the book and really rejecting the other. Now, when we look at the people, nobody says that, hey, I believe in this surah and I do not believe in this surah. Or I'm gonna really, I like Surah Baqarah and really I deny, what is in Surah Hadith. That's not the case. So then what it is really an attitude. For example, we would see people that, different groups, right? When they go and they read the Quran, right? The only Quran that they know is that really that fulfill their agenda, fulfill their manifesto, right? And they will completely ignore, what else really exists in there. This is, I'm talking about really at the leadership level, right? The other thing really doesn't matter. And they think there's the firqa najiyah, the saved sect, and everybody else is really just hellbound, basically really just kafir, murtad, or really a munafiq, right? And similarly within the religious community, with all this sectarianism, right? All the sects that we have, right? They only really just focus on those ayahs that serves their purpose, and don't even really just turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to those who really does not serve their purpose, right? So this attitude of really just picking and choosing, right? You see, on the one side we have people, who are really just so focused on the outward of the deen, right? How you should wear, what should be your clothing, how long should be your beard, what kind of topi that you're gonna wear, right? All these things. But on the other side, the same people, they will really not give the share, to their daughters, to their sisters in property. They will really deprive them really from education, right? they oppress them in many other ways, right? So when the deen comes to serve you, then really you go and you bring some of those ayahs, right? When you're dealing in public, when you're giving measure, right? You don't remember Islam. You forget about the mutaffif at that time, right? When backbiting others, when character assassinating others, when really it comes down to deliver the whole message, because we are really the carrier of this last message, right, to others. We really just give some fatwa, just this kufa, they just nudge us, right? The things like that, right? So at that point, really, we forget all about that, right? So we're using really the religion to slop, to just smash other people, right? Just bring this one ayah, just bring one hadith, and really just because, like, these are the only two things really existed, not looking at the whole picture. Not really just one ayah, or just one hadith for this matter, right? So this is a very prevalent really attitude that we have among the majority of the Muslims today. And because of that, right, there's a lot of fights and things like that. For example, in the same case study that I'm mentioning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that this in there, right? That so much so that because these little indifferences led to really sectarian, battles and wars between them. Like, for example, the way we are today, right? The people in Myanmar, Muslim people who are oppressed, being killed, have nothing really, just living on, on fish and all those sort of things. They go to the neighboring Muslim country, and they're not allowed to get in. They can't really help them, right? They were really just fed and really put back into the water to really burn alive or get killed by really those Buddhists, in Myanmar, right? How what's happening in Yemen right now, right? What's happening in Syria right now, right? And just think about that. The people of Myanmar, how many are there? But really in few millions, right? You can really just distribute them among other Muslims countries, right? But no. So and most of the bloodshed is really not being done by the non-Muslims, right? It's really within the Muslims. Imagine that 10-15 years of Iraq-Iran war, right? And then always this with the Iran and with the Yemen and all with the Syria, all these things. And I mean, we have done among self, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to come and really intervene in Bani Israel and tell them, "Wala taqtulu anfusakum," don't kill yourself, and don't expel each other, right? "Wala tukhrijuna anfusakum min diyarikum." Don't really expel people from their places. Don't kill yourself, meaning that don't kill really each other, right? It gets to that point. And as a matter of fact, if we really alive, if our heart is alive, right, the effect of it is really mentioned in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the ayah that I recited in the beginning, right? Innamal mu'minuna allazina, those people who really believe, mu'minuna allazina, idha dhukir Allah, when Allah is mentioned, think about it, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, right? Meanings that somebody reminds you that ittaqillah, what are you doing? This is what Allah says. This is what Rasul says, right? When Allah is mentioned, wajilat qulubuhum, their hearts tremble. The heart really just get filled up with fear. They see, this cold, spine, the hair stand. إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ayat are recited to them, وإذا تليت, this is passive voice, right? تلا يتلو تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا. And this recitation of the ayat, when they were reminded with that, زادتهم إيمانا, that really it increases them in their iman, in their faith, right? And they are the people who really totally dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ, that they really have the total tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we experience that ever? Do you really, when you go to pray and you finish your prayer, are you a different person? the month of Ramadan comes and really we go through all this mechanical exercise of really, just doing and, finishing the Quran and listening to the tafsir and all those things. At the end of the day, really, has that really, all these things really transformed you? How do we really define the relationship, right, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Like the Bani Israel was asked, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath with them, ta'budullah, that you're going to really enslave yourself, you're going to worship Allah. So in other words, that the more you know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more really you become humble. When you really internalize that Allah is Akbar, Allahu Akbar, then you should know that, right? That no calamity, nothing is bigger than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything is in his control. When you see a tyrant, right, oppressing, and maybe, at that time, really, you don't see any hope, but you remember Allahu Akbar, Allah is Akbar, Allah is the greatest. Right? When you say the Alhamdulillah, the Walak alhamd, that the praise, ultimate praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you are not seeking for your praise. Right? When you say that Allah is present everywhere, Allah is seeing, Allah is doing, what I'm saying is that, how you can steal, how you can be really unjust, right? So we have this superficial, really just outward of the Islam that we have really taken. I'm talking about really majority of the Ummah today. And when it comes to justice, when it comes to stand up for haqq, when it comes to really join hand with those, for right reasons, we're not there. We don't do that. I'm really just into halal and haram. Is this meat that I'm eating is halal? Where it came from? Oh, from this place. I mean, who was the guy who butchered it? How many surah? I mean, we just want the whole shajara nasab. And then going all the way, I mean, we have really gotten all the way into really just this mechanical side and really leaving the actual spirit of it. That is really the heart of it, is that, this constant beat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this constant link, connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as that's there, then, there will be life on all other action things that we do, and we continue to grow. This Islam becomes like a living experience, a living thing. This Quran becomes really a living thing in you, right? So that is when you really attain the status, when you say that, when is a dhukr Allah, when the name of Allah is mentioned, right? The wajilat qulubuhum, you will see that your heart will really tremble, right? And when somebody will recite the ayahs, right, you will see that really your iman is increasing. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات. بسم الله أوله وآخره الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Now just going back to it, let's finish this, the remainder of this ayah, right? Imagine that, these people are really the Muslim people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, what can be the punishment for this attitude where you're pick and choosing the Islam. You're not really looking at the whole picture. You're not looking at the other aspect of it. You're not really just focused on really what you believe is the Islam, right? Or when you're using Islam really as a card, right? All your life, you didn't do anything, you didn't know anything about Islam, but really now you're older, right? And there's kids, and you're reminding them that, what should be the parents, what should be the rights of the parents, and this and that, right? Or we bring Islam really, whenever really it suits you, right? When it's then we become Muslims at that time, right? And in terms of the other way, when we're dealing, when it comes to mercy, when it comes to justice, really, it doesn't matter. So Allah Ta'ala says, if you have this sort of attitude, right? And we're not talking about here the non-Muslims, right? What they were being addressed was that like for these ayahs, they started with really mentioning the third person, really Bani Israel, right? And then it came to really to the companions, to the Muslim Ummah, right? فَمَا جَزَاءُ ذَلِكَ مِنْكُمْ, right? That what should be really the punishment, that if anybody does this, what the Bani Israel did from you. Do you understand, right? From the third party to you, then what is the punishment? That you will be severely punished really in this life. Right? In this life. And then on the day of judgment, really there will be another, meaning that being a Muslim, being knowing you are the holder of this Quran, you are holder of this zikr. Rasulullah came in you. So as per Quran, really, then your punishment is doubled. The humiliation that really we have today in the Ummah. Tell me that are we really a lack of resource, lack of talent, lack of the total population, the lack of territory, the lack of intellect, intelligence? Everything is there. Everything is there. But then why we are really so humiliated? Why we have really no say in the matter of the words? Why we're not in T20s or T50s? Right? Our fate and everything is really just given in the hands of others, right? So this is really and we're fighting with each other, and still we think that I'm better than him and things like that, right? This attitude we have, for example, we say one thing and do another, calling these, for example, living here, the kuffar and the najas and these people, this and that, but then really every day I go and really work for the same kafir corporation, bringing same everything really home. I ran from my country, just came here, taking a refuge because over there really I couldn't really find a job, or there was so much persecution. But I come here, then really I'm just calling people bad over here, right? So this sort of attitude. So it is really the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really talking to the Muslims that if you have this attitude, this thing really so this is the humiliation in this life, just like the Bani Israel was really taken from Ya Bani Israel iskru ni'mati allati an'amtu alaykum wa anni faddaltukum ala al-alamin, that you were really remember the blessing of Allah that He bestowed on you, and you were really on the top. From there to all the lowest of the low, right? وَضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّ وَالْمَسْكَنَةُ وَبَاءُوا بِغَضَبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. So remember the word ni'mati in it, right? Inni faddaltukum, Ya Bani Israel iskru ni'mati allati an'amtu alaykum. Now, this is really very scary when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed our theme, right? Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinukum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati, right? Wa raditukum al-islamu deena. That today I have perfected your deen. Wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. The word Islam is not even mentioned. The same ni'mah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have completed it for you. Same thing. And what we have done with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have just reduced this deen to really, what you wear, to the size of the beard, the covering or not covering, or jilbab or other things, the core of this deen is really gone. Hearts are really hardened, right? So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And then finally, the last ayah that Allah says that these are those people, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ نَشْتَرَى الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ, that who have traded the akhirah with this dunya, right? In other words, I mean, just think about that. What does it mean that you have traded the akhirah, the end, the life hereafter with this life? Meaning that every time that when you are not completely following the Islam, when you have this pick and choose attitude, when you only think that based on just few ayahs that only your group should be the firqa najiyah, you should be the protected sect, everybody else is fall, everybody else is dal, and then you really take the ayahs out of context, from the context of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and try to start applying those ayahs to your neighbor and other people today, right? And then create hate and do all those sort of things, right? So over here, that these are the people who have traded, who have purchased really the life here in compared to the life hereafter, right? أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ, right? So in other words, that whenever you have this half attitude, that where you're picking and choosing, really you're just doing this for this dunya, to become more famous, to get more favor, to get really more clicks, to get more money, right? Or just for the self satisfaction of the ego, just this uh, a dose of dopamine by really just twisting and saying things and stuff like that, putting up, all sort of things. So in other words, that Allah Ta'ala says that these are those people who are those people who were taking really uh, believing in part of the book and rejecting the other part of the book, right? أولئك الذين اشتروا الحياة الدنيا بالآخرة فلا يخفف عنهم العذاب. Allah Ta'ala says that the day of judgment, or actually that is not even mentioned over here really, that Allah Ta'ala says that فلا يخفف, that the takhfif is really just reducing. The punishment will not really cease to reduce, right? Actually, it will really continue to increase. يخفف عنهم العذاب ولا هم ينصرون, and they will not be really helped by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not with us because we let our hearts to die, become hard, for only really becoming too mechanical into really just the outside of deen. We got so much into the fiqh and into all those details, but really the essence of the deen, which is really your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is gone. And with the reference to this month of Ramadan, I mean, that's what the month of Ramadan and this fasting is all about, right? To gain consciousness, right? To revive our hearts so we can recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just fix this link so that we can really reform ourselves. And my dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون واذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر وأقيموا الصلاة.